Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, the Alabama State House passes a third world budget. Also, the V-Team takes a look at child chemical endangerment. And Speaker Mike Hubbard, he's a sellout. Well, he's selling out his building. He already sold out the state. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V.
The Voice of Alabama Politics, with your host, Bill Britt, and the V-Team with Claire Austin, Susan Britt, Jack Campbell, Baron Coleman, Charlana Spencer, and special reports with Jonathan Barbie. Now, the #1 political show in Alabama, The V.
Welcome to the Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by the V-Team. Welcome all.
Good day.
Monday is Memorial Day, a time that we set aside to honor those men and women who sacrificed their life in service to this country. We are very proud of our men and women in service, but that day is especially set aside to remember those who gave all. This week, the Alabama House passed the best third world budget that we could find. Claire, it is cut to the bone. What are you hearing out there?
Yeah, it is a very bare bone budget. There's no question about it, because as we have mentioned in the last 4 years prior to this quadrennium, they've been cutting state government as much as they possibly can. There's been real cuts this time, but they passed it, and it's funny that the Democrats said we're not tax and spend Democrats, and we're not passing any of these taxes. So they let it all go through in the House. It's up at the Senate now. We'll see what happens, but I don't think that the senators are not in favor of passing any taxes. I think that's the budget you're going to get. Now, the deal is the governor has committed he's going to veto it.
Right.
We'll see, but if he does, I bet they'll come back and override the veto.
Susan, what are some of the things that are going to happen as a result of this budget?
Well, we're talking about a lot of people hurting out here. 5% cuts in Medicaid, prisons, mental health. We're talking about a lot of people with mental health. The courts,
big time.
18% in the DAs. So, we're talking about a lot of cutbacks. And I believe Baron brought it up last week that we're already 18 months out trying to get cases tried now.
Baron, how is law enforcement and the courts going to operate in this environment?
They're very poorly. To answer your question, they will operate very poorly. They're already operating very poorly, and it's not the fault of the hardworking men and women in those offices. They don't have the resources necessary to hire the people necessary to operate at a highly efficient level. The biggest problem is if you're a legislator, and obviously this was solved yesterday, it passed, I think 66 or so of them voted for it, but you had some Republicans who chose to vote no, and I understand exactly what they were thinking. This is a pretty drastic budget. They're going to upset some local DAs, upset some judges, mental health advocates. There's a whole lot of people that are going to be upset with this budget. And you're going to have an opportunity later to vote on this budget again. The governor is saying he's going to veto it. It may come out of conference committee. If the Senate changes it at all, you'll have another opportunity to vote then. Then the governor vetoes it, and you got a final opportunity to vote for it at that point. If you really want to weigh in on the budget in a positive manner, you've got plenty of opportunities down the road. No reason to go on the record at this point with a lousy budget. I was surprised how many Republicans voted yes on this thing.
Well, it is the kind of budget that we have. I've been getting floods of people sending me, write a story on this, write a story on that, how much it's going to impact mental health, how much it's going to impact, social services across the board. And
parks. Think about all the parks. People have been going crazy about these state parks.
Right. And it's just going to be obvious that we have an austerity budget and that we can't handle it. I heard somebody say it on the floor the other day. The Democrats stood up and said, Democrats can't run campaigns and Republicans can't run government. After 4 years, they haven't solved the problem of a dead budget. What happened to Marsh's plan? What happened to the other plans?
I think as we've kind of all batted this issue around, I believe the leadership, particularly in the Senate, and I think all of them think, okay, we've got these, they just passed this bare bones budget. And I think you asked the question, why did they vote on it? They just wanted to get it out of their House chamber. They wanted to get it off their hands, okay?
Hot potato.
Yeah, hot potato. Throwing one up to the Senate, knowing it's going to go to conference committee, knowing all these things are going to happen. I think they're wanting to say, okay, let's get in crisis mode in the state of Alabama, you know, let the people in mental institutions out, shut the parks down, where somebody will say, okay, let's either raise taxes or let's pass some type of gaming in the state of Alabama. And I don't think that the leadership, particularly the Senate, believes that we're there yet.
Well, now, Hubbard gave up completely on his plan of $200 million in taxes and a gaming compact. That's what we heard. That just evaporated.
Yeah, the caucus turned on him. You know, there were senators that said, I'm House members that said, I'm not voting for taxes, period. I ran my campaign on no new taxes, and I'm not doing it. So it died right there.
Yeah, but I don't know about I don't know about his gaming plan. I wouldn't say that that's a dead issue. That's not dead.
That's not a dead issue. But they've got some crazy way of bringing that back, is what you're hearing, right?
Right.
Barron, that's the first big defeat for Mike Hubbard, if not the only defeat he's suffered in 4 years.
Well, the charter school bill of 2012 was kind of a setback. This tax plan he put forward this year, trying to raise taxes $150, $200 million on Alabamians, and the charter school bill of 2012. If you want to talk about big defeats, though, this is a 5-year failure. Mike Hubbard and Del Marsh came in with mortal stranglehold supermajorities back in 2010. They've had 5 years to figure this out. And the fact that we are in crisis mode after 5 years, are you kidding me? You guys could have gotten anything through you wanted to. Anything. They passed dozens of bills, hundreds of bills, maybe 1,000 bills from the time they came in. And we still don't know what we're going to do with next year's budget? Are you kidding me?
And that's interesting you say that, because I was spending a lot of time in the Senate, and there's a lot of newly elected senators that said, no, we are tired of doing it the same old way it's been done. We need to fix this. Mm-hmm. So I think you're seeing some new freshman senators standing up to the leadership saying, we're not going to do it the way it's always been done.
I mean, on the federal level, you have to do a 10-year budget. You have to have a plan for a 10-year budget. Now, they ignore it, but at least you got a starting point, right, Susan?
Exactly. Why are we still budgeting year to year to year to year? Because they've been borrowing so much of it. I guess the next year they don't know where they're going to borrow from. The next year, finally, they're saying, listen, we got to do something instead of continuing to borrow away.
Well, the only reason that is because Bentley pressed the issue. Bentley did push the issue. We got about 1 minute left. The Education Trust Fund budget passed. The House is basically on board with the Senate. I mean, that's going to be
it's not
no
broke.
big deal.
The ATF is not broken.
Right.
No, it's had a bump in revenue.
Yeah, it's not financially broke like the general fund is.
But they're not going to let. But the chairman of the education budget is not going to let them steal money from education to put in the general fund.
Right.
I don't think that's going to happen.
That's good. But there's still no teacher pay raises. No real money for classrooms.
No
It's
textbooks.
just
No textbooks.
We don't want children taking textbooks home.
That way their parents would know how to tutor them in their studies.
Come on. And then I don't know about your children, but my children have everything's on a computer. Okay.
Well, but there's some kids that everything's not on a computer, but Claire, they're your kids.
Now we figured it out.
Not everybody can go to Montgomery Academy.
Well, we're glad you can. We're going to leave it right there before Claire hits somebody. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
The V is sponsored by Spot On Strategies Group.
It's time to take a road trip.
In Alabama, the road and the restaurants are calling. We've elevated barbecue to an art form, a meat masterpiece. Fine dining your thing? National awards are putting us on the map.
Because everything's fresh and local.
And if you like your dinner with a view, well, you can't beat this. Alabama has a road trip with your name on it.
Which one you gonna take?
Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Welcome, Jack.
Good to have you with us today.
Well, I feel cheeky. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, I didn't get the memo. I could have changed and put on a green shirt under my suit.
I know, I noticed that when we got here.
Well, you know, I don't know that anyone got the green memo, but it just turned out that way, and I think it's quite lovely.
I'm just a red
We're
lady
making up
today.
for the money the state doesn't have.
Exactly. By buying nice ties. You know, something, we did a story last week, and I found it interesting. I bought the study. I saw it online. It was a Canadian study. They took 12 years worth of data coming out of Canada and compared a difference in their programs up there, like their EBT and TANF programs, to ours. And they found that people that were given unrestricted EBT cards actually spent more money on their children than people who had restrictions. They also found that those people the people who had more money coming from the government actually spent less money on things like tobacco and alcohol. Here in the state of Alabama, we regulate what you can use your EBT card. You can't go to a psychic. You can't get a tattoo. You can't go to a strip joint. Well, I think that's good. But what this study shows is that they don't do that anyway. It's counterintuitive to what we've been told. You know, Wisconsin, Jack, recently banned the purchase of ketchup with your EBT card. Well, you don't have an EBT card.
No, but I don't eat that much ketchup. But the thing is, who cares? I mean, there ought to be a restriction on what you get, and when you run out, you run out. You don't get any more. Your EBT card, you use it, it doesn't work. I don't care. People go buy, you know, fresh snapper from the Gulf.
Well, that seems to be a gripe.
Well, as long as it's good, healthy food. But, you know, you're talking about Canadians and Alabamans. You know, we're Southerners. People down here like to drink and smoke.
Yeah, well, that's true.
They don't do that much of that up in Canada.
Well, they had Canadian whiskey. I mean, somebody must like it.
Well, nobody
up
can
there.
drink it, though. That's the problem. That's why they don't drink
Have you
it.
ever
It's
been to
terrible.
Claire's house? You see all of those things.
Oh, that's not true.
I'll say this. If you're talking about tattoos and casinos and body piercing, if they're not doing it anyway, then the restrictions shouldn't be that bad.
Right, I agree.
Ketchup, I got 5 children. If you banned ketchup from our house, my children would starve to death and stop eating.
Yeah.
At a certain point, the restrictions do get absurd and ridiculous, and they don't really serve any public purpose. But you know, the study's nice.
I mean, I thought it was interesting because I've been taught just the opposite for all these years. I thought, oh, God, you don't restrict it. These people who go out and get drunk and party on their EBT cards.
You're talking about a very diverse geographic region of another country versus in the Deep South, I think.
Well, you know, I don't know. They get these laws up north. I just think it's interesting.
There's a lot of sugar in ketchup, okay? We all know that.
I know. I just
That's why
tend
it's delicious.
I just tend to think that, you know, I mean, TANF dollars have a lot of restrictions on them. I get that. My idea is restricting it is you go to school. You make sure your kids go to school. Right. You make sure that they get good grades. I mean, I don't care if a guy's broke. Maybe a cigarette and a drink could help him, but I want to see him do.
Keep him out of a mental institution.
Yeah, I want to see him.
We don't have any of those anymore.
We don't have any of those.
We've cut mental health.
Okay, but the kids need to eat healthy and have decent meals where they can go to school to learn and get educated. Okay, enough of this subject.
This is
Canadian-
a frozen pizza, Mom, telling you about healthy
I'm getting the
food.
last word here. The Canadian study showed they spent more money on their children, not on themselves.
That's still up for debate. We'll talk about this subject later.
Oh, boy. Oh, Canada. We do have a very serious bill that's in the House, sponsored by Mac Butler, and it's the Chemical Endangerment Act. It's to get doctors and health professionals to report if they suspect that a mother has taken any type of drugs, which could be even prescription drugs, that would harm the child. We did have one woman that's been sentenced to 10 years in prison for chemically endangering her child. Jack, what's your take on this bill?
I'm sorry. I don't think you ought to put any more onus on doctors. I'm sure every responsible doctor who suspects that he has or she has a patient on drugs during pregnancy will either confront that patient or report them. I just don't think we need to legislate everything in society that you feel there's an ill.
Well, I think you're right. They probably, if they know that, they'll probably have that conversation with them. But, you know, being the only mother that's had children, okay, on the set at this juncture, you know, there's so many children that I think they all have no idea that are born into families all across the state that have drug addictions, and these children are sick, so then therefore the Medicare payrolls, that goes up, health care and everything else. I mean, something needs to be done with these mothers. I don't know if this bill is the right avenue, and maybe they need to work something out with the doctors, because you're right, it's a lot of responsibility for them.
Well, I mean, this bill, we have it. It's just this is tightening it up.
Well, it creates a new type of mandatory reporting requirement.
Right.
If you suspect child abuse and you're in certain professions, the law says you have a mandatory duty to report it, or you could be responsible as well. The question is, where do you draw that line with the doctor-patient privilege?
Right.
When is it okay for the state to invade that privilege? And what does it mean to suspect? I mean, I'm a lawyer. You bring me that. What does it mean to suspect that somebody's chemically endangering their child?
But, okay, well, wait a minute. When you go in, when you go into your gynecologist during pregnancy, you do a urine sample each time. That can be tested in the bloodstream, and they would know if somebody was on drugs.
What bugs me is this Republican supermajority. Aren't Republicans less government kind of people? Don't they?
Traditionally.
Traditionally, but this gang up there now, they want to legislate everything. I don't understand it.
Well, and that's kind of the thing that the other side is pushing back on, is they say, look, this is the worst kind of, big brotherism. You're inside our bodies. You're inside our doctor-patient relationship. And look, there's some docs that just don't want to get, it's a double-edged sword for them. They don't want to get down this road.
They probably don't want that responsibility.
Right. Well, somebody wrote that we're turning docs into narcs.
And what if the doctor's wrong?
That's right. That's what I was going to
What if the doctor's wrong? What have you done to that doctor-patient privilege?
Well, interesting, I'll bring this up real quick. We got about 30 seconds, I guess. This Amanda Kimbrough, who pled guilty to child endangerment, she had done methamphetamines, which she claimed she had been off of them for a while. But her child died. It was born prematurely. 9 died after 19 minutes of being alive. And the DA prosecuted her 6 months after the death of her child. 10 years in prison. I mean, her life has been devastated over this. Now, Etowah County Sheriff Todd Entricken says he's not interested in arresting women. He's interested in getting them in help.
Sure. Right.
And that's what a lot of these DAs are doing, the sheriffs are doing, is get them into treatment centers.
Well, I think that's what you said. I mean, I think most doctors, if they suspect something, they're probably going to talk to them. But if a woman has a serious drug problem, talking to them is not going to do anything. It's not going to do that much about it. Somebody's got to get them some sincere help.
All right, we're going to have the last word right there with Claire. We'll be right back with some more V after this commercial break.
In 1977, an 8-year-old boy picked up the game of golf from his father. The odds of that same boy then making it to the US and European Pro Golf Tours, 1 in 7 million. The odds of the Big Easy winning the US Open twice, 1 in 1.2 billion. The odds of him having a child diagnosed with autism, 1 in 88. Ernie Els encourages you to learn the signs of autism.
Welcome back to the V, the voice of Alabama politics. Barron, this week, Democratic Minority Leader Craig Ford wrote an op-ed that said, where is the leadership? I mean, he has come out and been very critical of Mike Hubbard, and also, in general, what we often refer to as Hubbard's lapdogs. They are not leading. But who in the Republican Party is prepared to lead in the House?
Well, it's an excellent question, because 5 years ago, the Democratic Party in Alabama was not just left for dead. They were dead, buried, daisies growing up. I mean, just completely kaput, never to return from their grave ever again. In 2014, sort of bared that out, where they actually lost ground from their horrific performance in 2010. If ever there was an opportunity for the Democrats to come out and make waves, you referenced earlier in the program about how they said, we're not tax and spend Democrats. You guys are the ones proposing taxes. We're standing firm against it. The Republicans are opening every door, giving them every opportunity to come in. Good question. Where's the leadership? It's not there.
Well, and in all fairness, I mean, the speaker cannot be in a real strong leadership position right now because his mind's not in the game. His mind is focused on Lee County over there. And you've seen a couple of days in the session in the last week or two where they had a special order and something happened and they didn't have another one. They were caught with not having a backup plan. And so there, you can see there's been a void or some stumbling with leadership and positioning the House to be able to work at the pace they normally do.
Exactly what we all warned them would happen?
I mean, absolutely. And Craig Ford, I'm crazy about Craig, but what takes him until May to say this publicly? Well, everybody's been scared to death of this.
Craig voted for Mike Hubbard.
I know, 99-1. Alvin Holmes, the only person who voted against him. The only sane person in the
legislature that day.
Well, that day, yes. That day. Well, the interesting thing to me is, of course, is what, about 6 more days left in legislative session?
6 days.
What can he do to him in 6 days? Not much.
Not much.
Not much. But I thought it was interesting. We've been talking a little bit about who might replace Hubbard, and I think that's an interesting topic. I've heard some people, of course, Jim Carnes' name has come up.
Good guy. I like Jim a lot.
Who have y'all heard?
Talk about Mac McCutcheon.
But I'll tell you who I think is a real up-and-coming freshman. I think has showed a lot of leadership, and even the Democrats, is the gentleman Will Ainsworth from up in Marshall County.
He's got leadership.
Tim Wadsworth is another one that is not afraid to stray from the flock.
I like what you're saying about about Will Ainsworth. He came up with a plan that nobody else was talking about.
Right.
Reorganizing I wasn't crazy about the plan necessarily, but he was thinking outside the box, and he got a whole bunch of people together to stand up to the speaker, and they kind of fell in line behind him and said, "You're the only one willing to lead right now." And he was part of the push that got the taxes taken off the calendar.
Well, I mean, he's still young, so giving him that big a job would be a little tough. But he's young, he's smart, he's energetic, he wants to go. Somebody that I think people keep forgetting is David Standridge. He is a bright guy, former probate judge, comes from the most conservative,
very reasonable guy, too. Very.
And works well with people on both sides. David Standridge would be an obvious choice.
Because, he chairs that rural caucus, which is, I have been to that once or twice, very diverse makeup, I would say very strong makeup of the whole identity of the state of Alabama.
And it's bipartisan.
Absolutely.
Both Democrats and Republicans.
We hear they do a great job. Boy, I wrote something about them that was unflattering, and I heard from all of them, and I said, maybe I got that wrong, and then we talked and sat down and talked about it. And they're a bunch of great guys and women that are on that committee. Piece of news, I know y'all had it on your radio show this week. Mike Hubbard is a sellout.
It took you that long to figure it out.
I knew that. But he's selling the building that houses his business, Auburn Network. Jack, he's selling it for $900,000. This is basically a 10-year-old, maybe 15-year-old building. And he's selling it. What do you think that's all about?
Somebody who wants to curry favor with him will probably buy it.
Yeah.
But interestingly, when he realized his little tax plan in the House, coupled with giving the Indians the exclusive right to gaming, when that looks like it fell apart, I think he probably realized, who's going to pay my legal defense now? I need to sell my building so I can be a little flush with cash to pay Mark White and his expensive team.
I think it was the signal of the end of Mike Hubbard putting that building up for sale. That is, in my opinion, the one thing you could point to in Auburn that is Mike Hubbard. It's the house of Auburn Network. It's the house of the 2 radio stations he owns over there. My question is he selling the radio station with it? Because if so, I might want to buy it.
Yeah.
No, I mean, in all seriousness, okay, someone buys the building and kicks him out.
Right.
I mean,
they just charge him rent.
No, but they could kick him out. Where does he go with his radio stations?
Well, I had somebody text me when the show was going on and go, "Hey, Brett, you want to borrow $1 million? You can be Hubbard's landlord. How would he like that?"
It'll be interesting to see if someone buys it and then he remains there and probably for rent-free, I would guess.
Well, he's asking. That doesn't mean he's going to get the $900,000. That's just what he's asking.
Right.
If I know Mike, he'll get $1.5 million.
Exactly.
Well, that's a number. He and Riley both really like that number.
Well, hey, Riley may buy it from him.
Yeah, good. I kind of hear he and Riley are kind of, they're at
little arm's length, perhaps.
They aren't hanging out, chewing the fat. Mike getting right and him going, "I love you, man." We're not seeing a lot of that. One of the things that we also did this week, we did a piece, excuse me, we got about 2 minutes. We did a piece where we went back in 2010. Mike Hubbard wrote an opinion piece for the OA News in which he he talked about how proud he was of federal prosecutors for arresting 4 sitting legislators who were involved in the bingo case. Then he also chastised the Democrats for saying that it was politically motivated, and they knew it was politically motivated because of the timing. Claire, that sounds awfully familiar, doesn't it?
It does. You should be careful what you write and what you say and what you vote on and who you support, because it can come back and bite you. Because he did to them exactly what he is saying is being done to him now.
Right.
And he's barking very loud.
Yeah. I mean, we're way down the road. I mean, all those people were found not guilty.
Right.
But boy, they raked him over the coal. Hubbard especially raked him over the coal. Some other things we did learn this week, Barron, and we got about a minute, is that several meetings led up to him having a big powwow, shall we say, with 2 members of the tribe. And that was an interesting thing.
Well, yeah, and if it's true, I give that caveat. If that's true, it's very troubling. If he was meeting one-on-one with no lobbyists and no staff members, as has been suggested, that I think it's something that bears looking into.
Well, it's certainly something that I think should be looked into. We don't know.
Well, I can tell you what, that rumor is running rampant at the State House, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, so a lot of times when you keep hearing something go on, there's got to be some validity to that.
We got it from several sources on the 5th floor that did take place.
Right.
And I have no reason to believe that they would lie. But we're going to have to leave it right there. You've been watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. You can catch us every day on alreporter.com, every day on YouTube, and every Sunday on your stations around the state. Thank you for watching.
Honor. As a verb, it means to observe with respect, to hold in high esteem, to admire. As a noun, it's about recognition, a distinction, a merit that deserves acknowledgement. Boiling it down, honor is all about respect, and our hunger for respect starts young. Accolades, achievements, promotions, trophies, titles, bonuses, blue ribbons. We scratch and scrape for them. Our honors, our accolades. However, there is one award, the most costly to ever exist, yet no man or woman desires to achieve it. The Purple Heart. While many of the recipients are the wounded warriors living among us, today we honor the servicemen and women who received the Purple Heart for giving up their lives while defending our country. This award reflects the highest form of sacrifice, one's self. These service members sacrificed so that we can live free. Our country, our families, each one of us, we are all honored by their sacrifice. And today, we honor them by remembering.